What would you do if the family who treated you like a nobody invited you to serve drinks at their party inside a building you secretly owned? Yeah, that actually happened to me. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 35 years old, and 3 weeks before New Year's Eve, I quietly bought the building where my parents were about to host the biggest party of their lives. They just didn't know it yet. And the best part? They asked me to work the event as waitstaff. Let me take you back to the moment it started. 3 weeks before New Year's Eve, I was sitting in a glass conference room in Austin, Texas, staring at a stack of legal documents thicker than a college textbook. Across the table sat my lawyer, David Lynn, adjusting his glasses, while the real estate broker practically vibrated with excitement. "Once you sign this," David said, tapping the final page, "you officially own the Hawthorne Tower in Chicago. 32 floors, luxury offices, a rooftop event venue. Market value? Just over $48 million. I picked up the pen. 10 years ago, I couldn't even afford rent. Now I was buying skyscrapers. Life's funny like that. I signed my name, Emma Carter. Just like that, the building was mine. No press, no announcements. The ownership was tucked neatly inside my holding company, Northbridge Properties, which meant nobody would immediately know I was behind it. And honestly, I preferred it that way. Because if there was one thing I had learned about success, it was this: quiet money is the loudest kind. 2 days later, my phone buzzed while I was reviewing renovation plans. Mom calling. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Emma," my mother said immediately, her tone already annoyed. "Finally, you never pick up." "Hey, Mom. We're hosting the New Year's Investor Gala again this year." Of course they were. My parents ran Carter Development Group, a mid-sized real estate company in Chicago. To them, every holiday was basically a networking event. "How nice," I said. "It's at the Hawthorne rooftop venue this year. Gorgeous place, very exclusive." I smiled slowly. "Yeah, I know. I need you to come early," she continued. "The caterers are short-staffed, and honestly, you've always been good at helping with these things." Helping. That's what she called it. Helping meant setting tables, carrying trays, cleaning up after everyone else. Meanwhile, my younger brother Daniel would be downstairs in a tailored suit, shaking hands with investors, just like always. "You want me to work the party?" I asked. "Well," she sighed dramatically, "you're not exactly running a major corporation, Emma. We figured you wouldn't be busy." Right. Not busy. Just managing $120 million in commercial property assets. But sure, not busy. "What time?" I asked calmly. "Be there by 4, she said. "Black clothes, something simple." Then she hung up. No goodbye. Classic mom. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the skyline outside my office window. Austin glittered under the afternoon sun. For a second, I considered telling her the truth, that the venue she just booked, mine. That the contracts her company was negotiating in that building, mine to approve. But then I imagined her reaction, the disbelief, the dismissive laugh, the way she'd find some reason why it didn't count. I had lived that cycle for years. Not anymore. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the property file. Hawthorne Tower. Owner, Northbridge Properties, LLC. Which meant me. And then I noticed something interesting. My parents' company had scheduled their New Year's Investor Gala through the building's event management team. 150 guests, major investors, potential partners, millions of dollars in deals on the table. I couldn't help smiling. Because technically, they were hosting their biggest business event inside my building without knowing it. The week before New Year's Eve, I flew to Chicago. The winter air slapped me in the face the second I stepped outside O'Hare Airport. God, I missed that cold. Chicago had been my home once, before my family made it clear I didn't belong in their world. My Uber pulled up outside Hawthorne Tower 20 minutes later. The building rose into the gray sky like polished steel, 32 floors of glass and power, and now it belonged to me. The doorman nodded politely as I walked in. He had no idea who I was, which is exactly how I liked it. Upstairs, the property manager, Sophia Martinez, greeted me with a bright smile. "Miss Carter, welcome to your building." Still sounded weird hearing that. "Everything ready for the gala?" I asked. "Completely," she said. "The Carter Development Group event tomorrow night is fully set up." I almost laughed. "Oh yeah," I said casually. "I've heard of them." She didn't catch the sarcasm. The next evening, December 31st, I stood in the employee hallway behind the rooftop venue wearing black slacks and a fitted black shirt. In my hands was a silver tray filled with champagne flutes. Through the double doors, I could hear music, laughter, and the hum of rich people making deals. My family's voices floated through the crowd. My mom, my dad, Daniel, all playing their favorite roles. I took a breath, then pushed the doors open and stepped into the party. No one noticed me. No one ever did. And as I walked through the crowd serving champagne, I couldn't stop thinking one thing. Every single person in this room was standing inside my building. They just didn't know it yet. Imagine serving champagne to people who think you're just the help, while knowing you could shut down the entire party with one phone call. Yeah, that's exactly where I was standing, holding a silver tray, watching my own family celebrate inside my building. The rooftop venue of Hawthorne Tower looked incredible that night. Floor-to-ceiling glass windows showed the Chicago skyline glowing against the winter sky. Snow drifted slowly outside, while inside, the room buzzed with money, ambition, and expensive perfume. About 150 guests filled the space. Investors, developers, tech founders, everyone holding champagne and talking about deals like they were trading baseball cards. And there I was, walking through the crowd in black clothes like one of the catering staff. "Champagne?" I asked a couple near the bar. They grabbed 2 glasses without even looking at me. Classic. I moved through the room slowly, observing everything, because something about this situation felt surreal. 10 years ago, my parents had told everyone I was the family disappointment. Now, their biggest event of the year was happening on property I owned. Life really does have a sense of humor. Then I heard my mom's voice. Sharp, confident, performative. "Daniel has been doing incredible work this year," she said to a group of investors near the center of the room. I glanced over. Sure enough, there they were. My parents, my golden child brother. Daniel stood there in a navy suit, smiling like a political candidate while shaking hands. My father, Richard Carter, had one arm around his shoulder. "This kid's the future of Carter Development," Dad said proudly. "He's got instincts." Daniel humbly nodded. "I've learned from the best." I almost choked on a laugh. Instincts? Daniel once tried to flip a property without checking zoning permits and nearly lost $900,000. Guess who quietly fixed that situation through a legal contact? Yeah, me. But of course, nobody ever mentioned that. I stepped closer to the group, pretending to offer drinks. My mother glanced at me. For half a second, our eyes met. Then she looked right past me, didn't even recognize me. Not surprising. My hair was tied back and I wasn't wearing makeup. To her, I was just another employee. "Champagne?" I asked calmly. Daniel grabbed one. "Thanks," he said without looking. Then he continued talking. "I'm actually negotiating a partnership with a major property group next quarter," he told the investors. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really?" That was news to me, because technically, any partnership involving Hawthorne Tower would require my approval. I moved away and set the empty tray down near the catering station. One of the real waiters nodded at me. "Crazy night, huh?" he said. "Yeah," I replied. "Rich people and their parties." He laughed. "Tell me about it." If he only knew. About 20 minutes later, the room got louder. The doors opened, and someone important walked in. You could always tell when money entered the room. Conversations paused, heads turned, people straightened their jackets. A tall woman in a sleek black coat stepped inside. Mid-40s, sharp posture, the kind of presence that makes CEOs nervous. The event manager whispered to another staff member beside me, "That's Victoria Hayes." I nearly smiled. I knew exactly who she was. Victoria Hayes ran Hayes Capital, one of the biggest real estate investment firms in the Midwest. Net worth? Around $900 million. She was also the person who had originally tried to buy Hawthorne Tower before my company closed the deal. In other words, she knew exactly who owned this building. My father hurried across the room to greet her. "Victoria," he said enthusiastically. "Glad you could make it." They shook hands. "My wife, Margaret, has been wanting to meet you for years." My mom floated over instantly. "Oh, Victoria, welcome. We're so honored you came." Victoria smiled politely. "It's a beautiful venue." "Yes," my mother said proudly. "We were lucky to secure it." Lucky. That word made me grin. Victoria looked around the room, studying the architecture, the lighting, the view. Then she said something interesting. "I actually heard the building changed ownership recently." My father's smile stiffened slightly. "Yes, we heard rumors about that. We're hoping to connect with the new owner eventually." I leaned against the wall, pretending to adjust glasses on a tray. This conversation was getting fun. Victoria nodded thoughtfully. "The buyer moved fast," she said. "Paid cash through a holding company." Dad whistled. "Must be some big corporate group." Victoria gave a small smile. "Actually—" Then she stopped talking. Her eyes had shifted across the room. Toward me. Recognition flashed across her face. Uh-oh. I had met Victoria once, 6 months earlier, at a private real estate conference in Dallas. At the time, I was negotiating the Hawthorne purchase quietly through lawyers. We only spoke for about 10 minutes, but apparently, she remembered. Her expression changed from curiosity to surprise, then to amusement. She walked directly towards me. My parents followed her gaze, confused, and suddenly, the entire situation tilted. Because Victoria Hayes stopped in front of me, looked at the tray in my hands, and then said loud enough for half the room to hear, "Emma Carter?" My parents turned around instantly. My mother blinked, Daniel frowned, and my father looked completely lost. Victoria tilted her head with a smile. "What on earth are you serving drinks in your own building?" Ever watched your family's entire story about you collapse in front of a room full of powerful people? Because that's exactly what happened next. And I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to argue. All I needed to do was tell the truth. When Victoria Hayes said those words, "What are you doing serving drinks in your own building?" the entire rooftop went silent. Like someone hit pause on the whole party. Champagne glasses froze midair, conversations stopped. Every single person within 20 feet turned to look at me, including my parents. My mom blinked rapidly. "Victoria, I think there's been some confusion," she said quickly. My father frowned at me. "Emra, what is she talking about?" Daniel crossed his arms. "This isn't funny." I slowly set the tray down on a nearby table. My hands were steady. My heart? Not even racing, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't nervous around them. I was just done. Victoria looked between all of us. Then she laughed softly. Wait a second, she said. You're telling me you don't know? My mom's smile had turned stiff. Know what? Victoria gestured toward me. That your daughter bought Hawthorne Tower 6 months ago. Silence. Pure, breathtaking silence. Someone across the room whispered, "Wait, what?" My father stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "That's ridiculous," he said. "This building sold for almost $40 million." I nodded. 38.5. His face went pale. Daniel scoffed. "Yeah, right. You're telling us you had $38 million?" I shrugged. "Not personally. My company did." More whispers spread through the crowd. Her company? What company? Victoria raised an eyebrow. "You mean they don't know about Carter Urban Holdings?" Now people were pulling out their phones, searching. LinkedIn, Google, articles. One of the investors suddenly spoke up. "Wait, Carter Urban bought Hawthorne Tower in June?" Another voice. "Holy, she's the CEO." My mom's mouth literally dropped open. "Emma," she said slowly, like she was trying to process a foreign language, "you run a real estate company?" I nodded. 7 buildings now. Daniel shook his head. "That's impossible. You barely had a job after college." I almost laughed. I had 3 jobs while starting the company, but nobody ever asked what I was doing. That one hit the room like a brick, because it was true. For years, they never asked. They just assumed. Victoria crossed her arms, amused. "Emma and I met at a development conference in Dallas. She closed the Hawthorne deal 2 weeks later." My father ran a hand over his face. "You're telling me the owner of the building we rented tonight," he looked straight at me, "is you?" "Yep." One of the investors chuckled quietly. "Well, that explains the mystery buyer." Another added, "Honestly, that was a bold acquisition. Prime location." Suddenly, the same people who had ignored me earlier were looking at me with respect, the kind my family had never given me. Daniel looked furious. "You never told us any of this." I tilted my head. When exactly was I supposed to? Between being asked to set up chairs or pour drinks? No one laughed, but a few people smiled. My mom tried to recover. "Well, sweetheart, we're proud of you, of course." Sweetheart. I hadn't heard that word from her in 10 years. Victoria gave her a look, one of those nice try looks, because everyone in that room understood what had just happened. My parents had spent the whole night acting like I was the help. Now they were realizing the help owned the building. My father cleared his throat. "Well, this is wonderful news. Maybe we should discuss some future partnerships." There it was, the pivot, the business angle. I expected it. I just wasn't interested. I shook my head slightly. "Actually, we already reviewed Carter Development." His smile faded. "And we passed." That one landed hard. Daniel snapped. "You passed? You didn't even talk to us." I met his eyes. "We reviewed your financials. Your last 2 projects were over budget and behind schedule." A few investors nearby exchanged looks because they knew it was true. My father looked stunned. "You evaluated us?" "Standard due diligence." Victoria chuckled under her breath. "Savage." Then she clapped me lightly on the shoulder. "I like her." I picked the tray back up and handed it to one of the actual waiters. "You're good," I told him. "Take a break." He looked confused but grateful. Then I turned back to my family. For a moment, none of us spoke. 15 years of tension hung in the air. Finally, my mom whispered, "Emma, why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her calmly. "Because you never cared to know." I grabbed my coat from the chair near the wall. The skyline behind the glass glowed with city lights. My building, my company, my life. And suddenly I realized something important.
I didn't need their approval anymore, not even a little. Victoria called out as I headed for the elevator. "Emma!" I turned. She smiled. "Lunch next week. I think Hayes Capital and Carter Urban could do some interesting things together." Now that was a partnership worth having. I smiled back. "Text me." As the elevator doors closed, I heard the party starting again upstairs. But this time, the conversation was different. Now people were talking about me, not as the family disappointment, not as the girl serving drinks, but as the woman who owned the building. And honestly, that felt pretty damn good.